People Describe Their, a series where people open up and share their stories with the internet. Episode 6, People Describe Their Periods. When did you start your period and how long are they?
So I vividly remember when I started my period. So it was the second day of year 8 and I was 12 years old, and I knew the night before that I was going to start my period because I had such a weird feeling, like I was having pain in a place I had never had pain before, and I was like, what if it's like my period or something? And the next morning it turned out to actually be my period, and I was super bummed about it. I was really sad. I started crying and I don't even know why. It was quite cathartic, but at the same time I think there was a part of me that was kind of ashamed, which obviously I am definitely not now.
My period started when I was around 15. They vary in length, but they're usually on the longer side, around 8, 9, 10 days, including the spotting either side.
So I started when I was 11 and I'm 22 now, so I've officially been bleeding half of my life. Back when I started, they usually lasted like an entire fucking week, but nowadays it's like 3 days, 4 days, but I'd probably say it hurts more now.
I started my period actually quite late. I don't remember the exact age, I think it was around 14, but I remember being so annoyed because my 1.5 year younger sister got her period before me, and I was like, why did she get it first? Because I always feel like periods are one of those milestones that you're aiming towards when you're young, because it means that you're a woman now. Not necessarily true though.
It was in the 8th grade science class. I started feeling a little weird. I looked down and there was a red spot on the seat, and I was not happy about it.
I make content all about disability awareness and LGBTQ plus positivity, and I'm also a non-binary person. I'm 23, so I've had my periods for quite a long time. I started, I think, when I was around 14. So yes, it's been nearly 10 years of periods now.
I started my period when I was 13, so I was in year 8. I was at a friend's birthday party, ice skating, when it started, and for some reason I knew it was coming. I'm not really sure how, but I was prepared, so it was quite a smooth start. It wasn't too much of an issue. My mum talked me through what was going to happen as well before it did, which really helped. So it wasn't a shock that I was going to get one at all. She even gave me some medical lube to help me put the tampon in.
I started my period when I was 13 years old, and I remember it was in India during the Christmas holidays. I remember going to the bathroom. I went to for a pee, and I just took my pants down and my undies down, and I saw this blood patch just in the middle there, and I was like, oh my god, this must be it, this must be my period. And I remember I called my mom in, and my mom was like, you know, like, oh my god, she got her period, because obviously it was at a gathering outside, so she was a bit freaking out. And she went to my aunt and she was like, do you have any pads? And my aunt didn't have any pads, so my mom went running around to the hotel reception. She was asking like the ladies at the register, everyone, and I was just like, oh my god, mom, just stop. Finally we got a pad from somewhere. My mom gave me a pad. I didn't know how to feel. I was like, okay, I got my period. Wow. Next thing I know, everyone came up to me and they're like, Ifra, congratulations, you're a woman now, you're this, you're that. And I was just like, obviously at 13, like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I was just like, okay.
I don't really remember my period starting, but I think they started around about 13 and they were horrific. So bad. I think I can't remember them like actually starting, because what came after, like once they started, was so bad. I used to like faint. Once I fainted and like fell down the stairs and really hurt myself. My periods would last for like 2 weeks. They were like so heavy. I'd had like tampons and like those horrible, you know, like thick sweaty night pads during the day, and still like everything would be ruined. I'd be bleeding everywhere, leaking left, right and center.
I started having periods at 13, normally 4 days. Sometimes I get those long week of periods.
I'm here to talk to you about my period. I didn't actually start mine until I want to say I was like 16. When I was younger, like just before that, I had an eating disorder, so I was very underweight, and that's why I didn't have them. When I got them back again, that was like, yes, you know, because it meant I was at a healthy weight and my body was functioning properly, and that I was healthy. My periods are super short, like 4 days. Like, I know that's like crazy, like, but the first 24 hours is stress, like so heavy and so painful. Then like the rest is like chill. So I feel like I kind of have like a week's worth of period over the space of 24 hours.
I started my period when I was like 13 in my friend group. That was like the average age. And I remember being like fairly sort of like about it, just like, oh, this is now what I have. And I think since then, because I'm 24 now, since then I think they've been like dot on, like clockwork.
How regular is your period?
She's not regular at all. I feel like sometimes she is regular when I'm eating good, I'm not stressed, I'm exercising and everything is just amazing. Then she'll be coming like every 6 weeks. But on a day-to-day, like if I'm eating averagely, doing averagely, anywhere from every 6 to 8 weeks. If she comes in 4 weeks time, like after 4 weeks, I'm literally shook. To be honest, having irregular periods used to worry me and it still does, but like everything seems to be fine gynecologically and I'm just learning to accept it and kind of roll with the punches.
So I'm very, very regular. Out of 11 years of periods, I've only missed one, and that's because I was traveling. Like, a lot of people don't know that, but like when you travel, it can seriously like delay or like fuck up your period. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the stress of traveling that delays it, or if it's like the atmospheric pressure being in a plane. I don't know, but it can fuck up your period basically, so don't stress out.
Mine's pretty regular. I'd say about 29 days per cycle, plus or minus 2 days, and there's different things that can influence that. If I'm stressed, sometimes my period will come earlier or later, or if I'm unwell, or my diet. If my diet's really shit, then sometimes that can make my period late.
They're regular now that I'm an adult. When I first started having sex like on a consistent basis, it really threw off my period. So they were like very irregular for probably about like a year, and that was like really nerve-wracking because like the first thought is always just like, holy crap, like my period's been like gone for 2 months, like I'm obviously pregnant. But nope, it was just they became very irregular when I started having sex regularly. It was just what was happening.
My period is super regular. I track my period and I don't take any hormonal contraception, so my period is all natural and it comes within 28 to 30 days. More recently, because I've been tracking it almost a year, it's been coming like dead on 28 days.
They not regular. Sometimes I'll be missing my periods for like 3 to 4 months. I know it's not normal without no sexual activity involved.
My period is not very regular. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. They used to be around once every 3 months. Now they're around once every 2 months, but every now and then it randomly just chucks one in at me, which is like once a month or less than a month, but usually on the longer side again.
My period's actually pretty regular. Now that I'm using a period tracker, it says between 25 to 28 days, which differs. That's the thing though, you want a regular cycle because as soon as you miss a day or it's like a day late, then you start freaking out and you're like, oh my god, I'm pregnant even though I haven't had sex. Thanks body, thanks brain.
How heavy is your flow? If abundant, how do you deal with it?
I'd say the first 2 days of my period are so fucking heavy. I will probably stain something, be it pajamas, underwear, fucking duvet cover, at some point during each period. It's really heavy. Like, I have to change my tampon like each hour during the first 2 days, and even then that's like a bit risky sometimes. Bad times, man.
My flow used to be not heavy at all. It used to be so light that I hardly really had to worry about it. Obviously, I still had to use period products. I use a cup, so I would put my cup in the morning, leave it all day, take my cup out. It'd be fine. It would only be like that full kind of thing. However, recently-ish, in the past year, it has changed and it has become super, super heavy. Every now and then I get a random light one chucked in, but now they are consistently usually really, really heavy. I'm saying like I have to change my cup every 3 or 4 hours and it's full, and my cup has also overflowed many times and gone everywhere. How do I deal with that? Well, I just consistently change my cup every few hours every time I go to the toilet, but I've also started pairing it with period panties, which are godsends. I wear period panties and I wear my cup so that if there happens to be an overflow or if it's super heavy, then oh well, it's on my period panties, so it doesn't really matter.
I would say medium to heavy flow. I know like some people experience like super heavy periods. I don't necessarily think I do, but they do on average last about 5 to 7-ish days, just depending. But days like 2 and 3 are like, whew, gosh.
When I was younger, my flow was so heavy. We're talking like 9-day long periods where they just felt like they carried on going for ages, to the point where when I was anemic, I actually had to take special pills on top of the pills I was already taking when I was on my period because I was so anemic because of the blood flow. I have noticed that since coming off contraception, my periods are so much nicer and lighter and beautiful and easy to deal with. I'm literally loving them. They are 4 days long, and yes, they fill up a cup, but they're not like, I don't feel like I'm gushing blood anymore, like it's dripping out of me all the time, like it really did when I was younger, or when I was on contraception, especially with the coil. They lasted forever on them.
How heavy is my flow? And if abundant, how do I deal with it? I love this. Abundant. This is the word to describe my period. She is abundant. She doesn't hold back. Well, I use tampons, so I feel like it can be quite hard to describe. But from days 1 to 2, I will use a Super Plus tampon, the heaviest one out there, and I will have to change that every 3 hours, which I think is quite a lot personally, and it's a lot to deal with. I don't know how I dealt with it when I used pads, because it was just a lot. It was a mess. But how I stay on top of it is just changing it like clockwork, not allowing it to get too messy, because if I go past 3 hours, it's not cute. But I keep baby wipes on hand and I just go with it, do you know what I mean? And then it lightens up. From day 3, it's a lot less heavy. Normally by day 4, after day 4, I don't really have to use any kind of protection or collection system.
My flow tends to be like fairly heavy the first couple of days. More often than not as well, it just stops for like a whole day and then starts again, which is like so weird. I don't know why it does that. My period for me is kind of like absolute non-negotiable downtime. I'm not doing anything on my period. I'm sitting and I'm eating. That's all we're doing. We're watching Netflix.
My flow is like a crime scene. I can't lie. It is super painful.
How do fellow disabled people cope with their period?
I'm a disabled person. I have multiple disabilities, including mental health. So I mentioned I have OCD. I also have stomach issues. I have overactive bladder. I have chronic fatigue. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So multiple different conditions. And I definitely find that my period affects those conditions. With my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, this basically means where I have lots of joint pain and very, very flexible joints. So when I'm on my period, I find that my joints sublux a lot more. I also find that I'm considerably more tired. I feel quite nauseous. My stomach is much worse. I don't know if anybody else has an issue, but I definitely get diarrhea when I'm on my period, and it's significantly worse than in my normal day-to-day life. And it's really awful to be having stomach issues and be on my period at the same time. I just find that I feel really dizzy and just not great. And apparently talking to my GP, it all links back to the fact that my disabilities are impacted by changes of routine and changes of hormones. I also naturally have low B12 and low iron. I do take supplements for them, but when I'm on my period, my iron obviously naturally drops. So because of that, I do feel even more tired. So I do find that I pretty much have to spend most of the time in bed when I'm on my period, because I just don't feel well enough to go outside and deal with the day.
How has PCOS affected your periods?
A lot. They basically dictate that my periods are going to be a little bit screwed up. It makes them either really light, really heavy, once a month, once every 3 months, no period pain, lots of period pain. It just makes them all up and down and very hard to track.
Have you tried anything / have anything to make your periods better?
Yes, I would say learning about periods is a huge thing, like to having like an actually better and more fulfilling, not rewarding experience, but like just having like a more comfortable experience is the first step, is to learn about it. So I read a book called Period Power by Maisie Hill. It was really good. I learned so much about the menstrual cycle that I'd never been taught before, but it's so interesting. Like I just keep it on my shelf, like for when I'm at like a certain point in my cycle and I'm like, I don't really understand what's happening to my body. Like let's remind myself like what's happening, why I might be feeling a certain way. After reading that book, I basically was like looking forward to like my next period, because I just felt like I knew my body so much more and I knew what was happening, and it wasn't something scary or something to be ashamed of. It was something like pretty cool, like that my body was doing. So I was really excited to actually have my periods after I read that book. And I started cycle tracking as well as a result of reading it, and I honestly think like that's like made a huge difference. Like if you want to have a better period, I would say like track your whole cycle, like your whole menstrual cycle, and do it regularly and really get to know yourself and like how you feel at certain times in your cycle. Perhaps you like prefer like the premenstrual side of it and being on your period to like the ovulation side and things like that, because maybe that's the type of person that you are. It just helps you like understand why certain things might trigger you at like a certain point, and like when you need to be like kinder to yourself, and when maybe you could like schedule in the diary something like that scares you a little bit. It's been really cool cycle tracking, and I really recommend it if you don't currently do it, if you have a period, that is. The way I track my cycle, by the way, is really easy. I just use an app called Clue, or you can use any other apps. There's loads of apps that you could use, or you could like write it down if that's how you prefer to do things. So yeah.
Yes. I use a whole host of things to help me with my periods. The On CBD oil, that has really helped. I use the topical one. For me, it's a mix of the sensory experience and the CBD, rubbing it on my lower belly and just taking a couple minutes to massage that area to calm me down, because when the pains come, it can be quite intense. So just to relax, take deep breaths, massage is so therapeutic for me. Also, a whole host of pain relief. I take cocodamol, so codeine and paracetamol, just the one over the counter, and I've only recently started taking that because my periods really upped the ante. I didn't think they could get any worse, but they did. You know that kind of pain where you can't do anything, you're in so much pain you feel sick? That kind of pain. I've been taking that for the last few cycles, and that's really helped me. I used to take naproxen, which is like ibuprofen, but then recently, like last month, my GP prescribed me mefenamic acid, and she said I should try that. I tried that, and I think, yeah, it's just as good. They're from the same family of drugs. So also red raspberry leaf tea or capsules. I use the capsules because I'm not really a hot drink person, but I feel like it'd be nice as an iced tea. Anyway, that is really helpful in reducing the severity of my periods and the length of them. If I don't take it, I find that I bleed for like 7 days, but if I take it, by day 5, I'm done. My GP also prescribed me tranexamic acid, which is used to lessen your flow, lessen bleeding essentially. And I was really hesitant in taking it, but I just thought, let me try it. 1, because I've paid for it, and 2, the flow is crazy. And I tried that last month, and it really did. After day 2, I was almost pretty much done. For me, I think it's unnecessary. As much as I bleed really heavily, I try to avoid prescription medication where I can, but for pain, it really is necessary for me. But in terms of flow, unnecessary. I didn't like how clotty it was. I feel like I should just let myself bleed naturally. I'm happy to take the red raspberry leaf extract though, because it's herbal and I'm all here for herbal medication. For me, breathing and listening to music, I have a particular playlist called Sanctuary, which just takes me to a different place. I focus on the melody and I breathe. Honestly, if I could spend all day doing that, sure. But honey, I gotta work.
On products, again, especially Holy Cramp. For me, it works wonders. Just takes away all the pain.
So obviously painkillers, weed helps with cramps a lot. But my number one tip or trick for when you're on your period, get like a water bottle or get a watering can. I have a watering can, it's like a stegosaurus, sort of like dinosaur watering can, and I fill it up with hot water, like not like boiling water, like warm water. Sit on the toilet, pour the hot water over your belly and your vag, like go down, you know. I don't know why this helps so much, but just like the warm water on your belly, it totally helps, man.
Make a period playlist, like a little Sunday self-care kind of vibe. I think music really does have a heavy effect on your mental health sometimes, and it can really soothe, and I found that it really does help me. Also, take your time. Don't push yourself to like do too many things at once, and you're allowed to say, hey, I'm on my period, there's no way I'm going to be able to accomplish all the things that I usually do like twice as fast. I'm going to take the day off, I'm going to take my time, and that's okay. And you need to validate that. You need to be okay with taking a down day if you need it.
What products do you use, and what's your favourite collection method?
Currently, I am obsessed with period cups, but I always had tampons, pads, and liners on hand no matter what, because you just never know if you're gonna be out and about, like what you might need. Also, like leading up to my period, I like to wear like sometimes a liner or a pad to bed, just because like I don't know, I'm like, am I gonna get my period tonight? Am I not? And then sometimes even when I wear my cup, I wear a liner too. You know, if I'm wearing white, I'll put it in there as like just a precaution, like you never know what could happen, just a little just in case moment.
I'm an on girl. I use on products and they have genuinely changed my life. So I am all about on products. I haven't tried any of the other organic products, but I would say that absolutely, like if you can't get on, use like organic stuff, because it's so much better for you. There's none of that like horrible like bleach and or like plastic and stuff that you're putting in. I never used to use tampons because they used to really affect me, and now I'm like tampons only.
I'm not known as this, but like people have called me the period queen. I probably have tried like every period product going. I currently use reusable pads the most though. Before I started to use them, I didn't really know what a period actually looked like. I mean, I did, but like, you know, conventional period products from like mainstream brands and like supermarkets and stuff, they tend to like put in a lot of like chemicals and stuff to like neutralize odor and like absorb blood. It almost like changes like not just the texture, the smell, but like the sight of it as well. I remember when I first like started to use a reusable pad, I literally never knew that blood smelled like that. Like I didn't know what blood smelled like, which is crazy because obviously I had periods for a long time, like up until this point, and that was the first time I was like, oh, that's what blood smells like. So I thought that was quite interesting. It's definitely like improved my body literacy because I can look at like the period properly.
I used to use pads. One of the things I hate is feeling the blood just kind of ooze out and like sitting in that pool of blood, which I really didn't enjoy. And I also have like elongated labia issues, so it always chafed on my pad, and I was like, this is not the life I want to be living. So I decided to start using tampons. I'm quite a regular subscriber of the On tampons, and I love their ethos and how they're super organic and really eco-friendly and good for the vagina. Sometimes I do also use a liner if needed because my period flow is really heavy and it's really tiring. But I also do want to get their like little CBD oils. At one point I want to try like menstrual discs like the Nixit, and hopefully I can be more eco-conscious as I move forward.
My favourite is a menstrual cup, and I was really torn about going and using a menstrual cup. For a long time I was like nervous, but as soon as I did, it was a game changer, absolute game changer. So I used the Moon Cup. I've also tried the Lily Cup. I've tried another cup from Intimina, but the Moon Cup for me worked really well because of the hard plastic. Other cups don't fit right, other cups they leak, but I would recommend a cup to anyone who hasn't before. I don't fear my periods anymore because of the cup. Once you get the hang of it, which can take a couple of months, it's my go-to. I love it. It goes everywhere with me. Well, it doesn't literally, but you know.
I use pads. I never use tampons. My goal is to get a menstrual cup. I really want to get it, but I can never choose. Like, I'm really picky. The way I choose stuff is it's a long process. Also, I'm from Ukraine, so the shipping can be really expensive, really complicated.
This is like one of my favourite subjects to talk about. I use a menstrual cup. Organic Cup is the brand that I use. It's amazing. Like, I've been using it about a year now, and I've just started using it without anything else, so like no panty liners or anything, and I'm confident that I'm not gonna have any like leaks or anything, so that's awesome. Also, like, it's really great for tracking flow, like tracking how much blood you're losing over your period.
I was actually using pads till I was like 19. I think the first time I used a tampon, I was like 20 years old. And the only reason I used it for the first time was because one of my housemates back in uni was like, Ifra, have you ever tried using a tampon before? And I was like, no, I haven't. And she was like, you need to try it. Like, it's going to be such a lifesaver. I remember the first couple of times I tried it, I felt like I was stabbing myself, and I was just like, what the hell is happening right now? But then afterwards, I think the more and more I got used to it, and I realized like how much I've been missing out. I do still wear pads. The only time I wear pads is during a night.
I've been using a cup for like 2 years now, on and off. Some days I can't really use it because my cervix comes down really low, and I feel like when I put the cup, it sort of doesn't quite catch the blood, it just goes round it and I leak, so it's something. Depends what day I use them.
Do you get shooting pains in your bum when on your period?
totally mad. Like, it feels like someone's stabbing you in the arsehole with a fucking knife or like a metal pole. I don't know why that is, but it really, really fucking hurts, especially when you go to shit or like you're about to fart or something, you get like a stabbing pain in your ass. It always happens when I'm on my period. It doesn't happen any other time.
Yes! And I thought I was the only one. I used to think I needed to go to the doctor, but I was just like, how am I gonna describe this pain to the doctor? She's gonna think I'm insane. It's like if somebody were to like tase you, but like only in your butt. It's so bad. And like the worst part is like you know when it's coming, and I don't know how to describe it, but like I feel it in my stomach first, and then it slowly moves down, then it'll be right here, and then it keeps moving down, and then eventually moves to the back. The pain hits, and it's horrific pain, and it's like you literally like stop moving and you're just like, oh. It's like so bad.
A lot when I'm on my period, it's like I get a really bad cramp in my rectum, and they are so painful. Like I can deal with period pains, they can be really painful, I'm there for ages like that, but when it's the shooting pain in your bum, it is like I cannot move, I cannot speak, I can't even breathe. I'm like,
I do get shooting pains up the bum and also kind of up the vag. Me and my friends call it hot poker up the bum, or like, yeah, because it just feels like that, like right up there. I feel like it catches me by surprise, one of them. I'm just like doing something and then it'll just like happen, and it kind of makes you slow down a little bit.
Shooting pains up your ass. Oh my God. Oh, you know what? I used to always think that I was the only one who got this, because there are times, I tell you, I'm at work or at like when I was back at uni in the middle of a lecture, or I would be in public doing a public speaking event. And I remember when I was on my period, I would get this pain like go oh, shooting pains up your ass is like the worst thing ever. And I tend to get it especially on my second or third day, especially when I wake up in the morning. Like I'm having a peaceful sleep and then all of a sudden I just turn and then it's like...
Do you wank while on the rods?
Yes, I fucking do. Always have. Well, probably always fucking will. It's like, you know when like a cat or like a dog's in heat and they go around like screaming because they want a shag? I guess that's kind of like the same thing. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's hormones and shit, so it's only natural, man.
Sometimes and sometimes not. Normally by day 4 and like day 5... I'm ready to go, so for sure. I would just keep a tampon in and just work on the outside, you know, stimulate that clitoris, and that works for me. Days 1 and 2, it's not even on my mind.
Oh my God, just try and keep my hand out of my pants. I masturbate quite a lot anyway, but like on my period, it's like double, at least. It'll be like 6-7 times a day. It's probably way more than that, actually. I feel like I was like, what's like an acceptable amount that's quite a lot? No, I definitely, yeah, constantly. Like, I'm quite lucky in the fact that I can just kind of like come over and over and over. So on my period, that's like 10 times more. So yeah, it's my best friend on my period.
Masturbation during periods. This definitely needs to be normalized. Like, it's honestly a lifesaver, because orgasms, they just ease the period cramps so much. I feel like it shouldn't be such a stigmatized thing. It's your body, your blood. Like, why is everyone so icky about it, you know?
Sex on your period. Is it disgusting, unhygienic, or just taboo?
For me, it's kind of just a bit inconvenient as a straight woman, especially like penetrative sex. I'm okay, I'm just okay. But like other forms of sex, definitely. Because for me, I crave intimacy all times of the month, but particularly on the last few days of my period.
I started having sex actually quite recently. I'm 20. We've tried that. It was really slippery, but I liked it.
I have had sex on my period before, and honestly, it's some of the best sex I've ever had, because I am hornier on my period, and like the feeling, it's just everything. I just feel like I'm just more aroused. It's like, ooh, I'm not like the world's biggest fan of like the smell of a period, so like when I'm having sex and I'm just like, oh, now I can smell my period, sometimes it distracts me a little bit, but if you can really just focus and be in the moment, it's actually really great. So yeah,
I find it fine if it's the first day and I'm quite hormonal, like no, but my partner doesn't seem to mind, as long as you prepare and put a towel. You don't care about getting messy, or just your sex towel, your blood towel, put that down, away you go. As long as like you check in, or whoever you're with checks in on you, just like if you want to keep going, and that if it hurts because your cervix might be tender or whatever. But yeah, generally I find it really fun. It's not disgusting. Like if ever I was with someone that wanted to go down on me, I wouldn't be like, oh, disgusting. I wouldn't mind that. But sure, if you're into it, I wouldn't mind.
As for shagging, I guess it is a misconception that it's really unhygienic. There's going to be blood fucking splattered across the walls. There's going to be so much mess, which is really not true. I've only shagged like a couple times on a like really heavy flow day, and it's not really that messy. If you're scared, stick a towel down, man. But it's really not that bad. You're more likely to stain something when you're sleeping. That reminds me of something that my ex-husband, I fucking married this fuckhead. I married this clown boy. He said to me when I was like 17 and I wanted to shag when I had my period, and he was like, nah, that's not happening. If I shag you and you've got your period, I will get dick cancer. I do not know if he genuinely believed that or he was just saying that as an excuse because he thought it was gross to shag a menstruating vagina. If you're not into that kind of shit, just like be honest with your partner. If you cannot get over the idea of blood and stuff like that, just talk to your partner. Don't make up mad excuses, man.
If you take contraception, how does it affect your periods?
I'm currently on the coil. I've only had one period on the copper coil since having it inserted. I've been bleeding for nearly 4 weeks now. So yeah, it's only been very light spotting. It was a lighter period than normal, which is confusing because they said when I went on the copper coil that my periods would get heavier and more painful. It actually got lighter and less painful, but again, only one period, so I don't have that much to compare it to. For now, it seems like I've got my period and I'm just consistently bleeding, only a little bit. Could also be stress though. Don't forget the almighty stress. That could definitely also be affecting the fact that I've been spotting for a very long time.
So I was on the pill since I was like 16. It totally did like decrease the heaviness of it. It didn't decrease the length of the period, but it really helped with cramps. It really helped with the heaviness of it. It made my boobs really, really sensitive and massive, and it kind of hurt a lot. Like even if like I brushed against something, my boob hurt. So that was a bad time. It helped my skin though, like it really helped my acne.
Contraception really affected my periods, especially when I was on the coil. They were just so long and heavy and painful, and I remember my periods always being extremely a traumatic experience. I would say I would dread my period coming, but now I'm like, oh okay, cool, and I'm alright. I'm not on contraception anymore, and I have noticed a massive change in that, but I don't recommend coming off of contraception for anyone who is regularly sexually active, especially with new partners, or who has different ideas about pro-choice, about dealing with a situation if you don't want to be pregnant.
Does your vulva ever feel like it's being pulled down by gravity on some period days?
Yes, it does. What is that? It's like so weighty. Bless her. I feel like she actually kind of like puffs up a bit as well. I always thought it was maybe like water retention, but I don't know.
Are your periods always red or are they different colours? And describe the look, texture and smell of the blood.
Okay, so the look of the blood, it honestly depends. There are times, you know, if I'm wearing a pad and I look at it, it's just like red color there with a few pieces of chunks in there. I know that's TMI, but it looks like that. Sometimes the chunks are like really big. It just changes. When it comes to the color, I can go from like dark red to light red. Like honestly, there are times like if I'm wearing a pad, I'll see like different shades and I'm just like, what is happening right now? But the thing is, I try not to observe too much. The main reason is because the smell of periods is just something that I cannot. And this is one of the reasons why I prefer tampons, because when I'm on tampons, I don't smell anything, you know? You just yank it out, put it one end, whereas what I feel it with your pad, you can smell it. Do you know what I mean? And especially like there are times I'll be lying down and I can like smell my period from like here. I spoke to my friend about it and I'm like, this is so weird. And she's like, I think it's only you who will smell it, because if you're with someone else, they probably wouldn't, because I think we tend to like, we're sensitive to our own kind of thing.
There are definitely lots of different colours. It depends on where I am in my cycle. At the start, they seem to be more in the red colour, and then towards the end, they go more brown. And also it's not like just thin blood, it's lots of different textures. And sometimes the like textures, if it's more gooey, could be like a bit red and a bit brown. So it really depends. Occasionally it can get even really dark that it almost looks black to the eye. So yeah, it's lots of different colours. It's definitely not just pure red. I think it would be interesting to see more kind of natural period colours within our advertising. I know at the moment it's really difficult to even get the colour red in period advertising, which is very frustrating, but it would be good that once we kind of pass that barrier to see lots of different natural colours of periods, because I think it's all different colours and that's natural as long as it's a healthy colour, of course.
Different colours. They go from light pink to deep red to bright red to brown. Colours of the brown ready rainbow. The really light pink stuff is usually mixed in with like clear sticky-ish, like slimy sticky fluid. The brown is kind of smooth. The really bright red is kind of watery. The deep red is thicker and like kind of stringy and like clotty. All different types of textures throughout the 9-day period or however long I have my period that time.
My periods are rarely ever red. Rarely. They're always brown, very dark red, if not black sometimes. I have no idea why that is. Maybe I've got very dark blood, but sometimes I get very fresh blood, but that's quite rare. But that also could be because I'm using a cup and that is sitting in me, you know, like for 8 hours. So it gives time for the blood to coagulate with the air, and then that can make it darker.
So my blood tends not to have too many clots in it. It's quite like thick though in general. Bright red, as I said before. They're quite pretty, to be honest. Like I enjoy my period blood. And the smell of it, like, how do I describe this? Kind of like a warm, like you know when you come in like in winter and like someone's been cooking something and it smells really good, like that kind of smells like that to me. It's quite like a warm smell, quite rich, with like a tiny bit of like tanginess.
On a scale of feather to monster truck, how bad are your cramps?
I don't have cramps, almost never. But sometimes the shooting pains on your bum, like that one, yeah, I get those.
My period pain used to be zilch. Nothing. No period pain. It was great. Now my periods have started getting heavier. Whew, oh my god. Really, really bad. They're just bedbound for a few days. I've started taking paracetamol and ibuprofen as soon as I get a hint of period pain, and then consistently take that alternatively for the time that it allows me to take that, and that usually nips it right in the bud.
My cramps used to be so bad that I was in tears, and I've been sick before. I was in agony, which is why I used to dread my periods. But luckily they're not like that anymore. Sometimes I have a period and I'm like, whoa, like the cramps, I didn't even need to take painkillers for them. And other times I'm like, yeah, get me the cocodamol because I need something. Sometimes I can be doubled over.
How does your cycle affect your mental health / states?
So I actually have OCD. I have pure OCD, which means that I don't have any visible compulsions. However, I do have constant intrusive thoughts, and when I'm on my period, they're so much worse. And I also notice that my anxiety rises. A few months ago, I was very, very unwell with OCD. However, I have now gone through therapy, so I am much better at dealing with it. However, my period, it definitely flares. I can have intrusive thoughts about hurting people, or that I may be in love with a famous person. Although intrusive thoughts are not real and they don't actually mean anything, it can still cause great anxiety. Now I am aware that it's because I'm on my period and that's why I'm having the flare, most likely because of my hormones being kind of at different levels. I just naturally seem to flare in my OCD, and I do have the correct coping techniques, but it is still really frustrating to be on my period and be struggling with OCD at the same time.
I noticed the different points in my cycle way more than I did when I was younger. Like I didn't used to understand why girls would talk about like, oh, my hormones, or my period, or I'm feeling just really crap because of my period. I just thought they were making it up or like being annoying, blaming it on their period, because I didn't really notice any changes. But now I'm 27, I notice it way more. I'm like really aware of where I am in my cycle. Pretty much on my period and the time before, I'm a bit of a write-off in terms of emotions. I usually have like at least one big cry or like one breakdown. But the rest of the month I'm pretty good. Like after the period I feel fresh, ovulating, I always feel really good and like high energy and motivated, and then it kind of goes downhill and I just want to eat chips every day.
In the week leading up to my period, and then maybe the first couple days, I get quite bad anxiety and sadness. I mean, I struggle with anxiety like kind of on and off generally, like in my regular life. It's just kind of heightened around that time just before my period. It's kind of like very like the cliche, like you just cry at everything and then you wonder why, and then the next day you start your period and you're like, eh.
Massively. Like before my period I cry a lot, and I also got diagnosed with bipolar, and I don't really resonate with that diagnosis anymore, but I would say around my period and like the days before it, I definitely kind of like start to notice the symptoms that, you know, they consider to be bipolar more. Just a bit more erratic, depression and then kind of like swinging into happiness. So yeah, it definitely affects my mental health.
Well, yeah, I do notice that I'm very more anxious and like self-sabotaging and depressive. Normally like the week beforehand. When I'm on it, I'm just like, ugh.
In the lead up to my period, probably like usually a week before, I just feel so shit. I feel so low and I feel so irritable. I would just want to shout at everyone. Everything fucking pisses me off. And when my period finally comes, it's just so much of an emotional relief. Like I'm no longer crying at stupid shit or whatever.
Does your period empower you?
Yes, it does, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, where now that I've educated myself about what a period actually is, what it means, and like the various health implications from different factors that might happen during your period. Yeah, I feel really empowered by it. I work for a charity and I'm employed to develop a organic period products subscription service. It's called Fempowered. People sign up to the box, and in the cost of the box there is a donation to the charity, and that donation goes towards helping others access like decent toilets and clean water. So I just wanted to add in as well that whilst periods empower me, I know currently, like at the moment, it's not the way it should be for everyone else. The statistic is 1 in 4 people around the world don't have access to a decent toilet. I think about not having access to a toilet whilst I'm on my period, and it gives me anxiety, and I think it gives most people anxiety because we're just not used to it, but it's the reality for like that 1 in 4 people.
This is a really good question and quite difficult for me to kind of understand and get my head around. I guess that's because I'm a non-binary person, but I present as very feminine, so I wouldn't say that my periods empower me. I think also my disability plays a big role in that. I feel very unwell when I'm on my period, so I do almost dread it. My OCD is really bad, so it's just a combination of lots of different things. However, I will say that it does help me to feel more in tune with my body. It helps me to understand my body more, and it's always been something that I'm very interested in. I remember as a child I was kind of desperate to start my period. I wanted to be like everybody else, and I ended up starting around 14, 15. And when I started, it definitely empowered me. It made me feel like an adult. I was grown up. However, now I wouldn't say that it's something that I have a connection to. I am on the patch contraception, which I know that not that many people are on. I just wear it on my arm like this. I can't actually wear it on my back because it causes itching. My arm is the only place that I can wear it, so most days in the summer you can see it. A lot of people will ask if I'm ashamed about the fact that you can see my patch. I'm not, but because of that, it means that I have great control over my periods, so I can kind of choose when I have them and when I don't. So I guess that's also empowering, to have control over my body at different times and know what my body's going to be doing. Because I'm a disabled person, I don't have much control over my body. I suffer quite greatly with incontinence, which I talk about very openly because of my conditions. So it's nice to have something that I can control, I guess, and feel that I kind of, I guess, can, yeah, look after myself, and that's empowering to be able to have that tiny bit of clarity about when I'm going to be on my period and not on my period. So I suppose it is, but it's probably a different answer to what most people will give because my periods come from a different angle, I guess.
3 words you associate with your period.
Bloody, painful, magical,
bloated, heavy, entertaining,
hesitant, ferocious, and painful.
Blood, pain, lethargy.
Pain, horrific, okay, and then horny.
Thank you so much to everybody who got involved in this video. Your vulnerability is truly appreciated. Please go and show them some love in the comments, and also find their socials in the description. Check out one of my personal favourite videos out of this series, which is people describe their invisible illnesses. Or you can check out the whole playlist. Altogether we have 6 so far. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful life.